So good morning, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to the keynote for the Ethical Leadership Week. This is actually our fifth time having Ethical Leadership Week. So I'm Dr. Leigh Clark, and I'm also serving as the Tolbert Faculty Fellow for Business Ethics. And as I mentioned, this is our keynote address for this week. This week we've had a theme of focusing on truth and integrity and how that is so important to make ethical decisions and to be an ethical leader. I will hush. I don't want to talk too much myself. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Dean Urban, who is here to say a few words, and then I will introduce Mila Grigg to you.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. And in case you don't know who I am, my name is David Urban. I'm the Dean of the Jones College of Business here at MTSU, and I am in my 8th year as the Dean. It's so good to see some of my Dale Carnegie students on this particular event. This is great. And we've got a good crowd, and trust me, you all are going to get a lot out of this. And I don't want to take time away from the speaker, but I do want to mention some people who are really, really important. First of all, the reason why we have Ethical Leadership Week is because of two folks who are MTSU Blue through and through, Tom and Martha Boyd. I have known Tom and Martha ever since I came to MTSU. They are tremendous supporters of Jones College and MTSU. Tom, as a matter of fact, happens to be one of the members of the university's Board of Trustees. And we just had a meeting of the Board of Trustees this past week. But Tom and Martha have been very generous in providing funding so that we can conduct Ethical Leadership Week year in and year out, because we really believe that ethics in business is a really, really important topic for our students, not just to be exposed to, but to internalize as they get ready to leave the university and enter the real world of business. There are ethical challenges around every corner, and I think the presentation today is going to help you navigate some of those, and it's also going to give you some really, really valuable advice for your own professional pursuits. And again, I'll have that be the teaser as we get ready to go. I also want to acknowledge Larry and Martha Tolbert. Dr. Clark noted that she is the Tolbert Family Fellow in Business Ethics, and Larry and Martha Tolbert, also two MTSU True Blue supporters, and who have known me, and I've known them for a long time. They happen to go to my church, and so I see them very, very often, but they have very generously supplied funding to support some of Dr. Clark's specific initiatives in the area of business ethics. So between the Boyds and the Tolberts, we are well looked after when it comes to ethical leadership and conduct in business. So thank you, Larry and Martha. Thank you, Tom and Martha. And I will now turn it back over to Dr. Clark, and you're going to like this, trust me. We'll see you.
Okay. So I am going to introduce you guys to Mila Grigg. Mila is the CEO and founder of Moda Image and Brand Consulting. And she, as you will see, is very passionate about brand leadership and image. Her passion to help others succeed came from a lot of work that she was doing. She first started off in insurance. She did quickly from there, she moved on to the music industry and did some work. She spent a lot of time working directly with athletes, entertainers, and professionals and businesses in the area of brand and marketing. She actually has a degree from MTSU. She's an alum with a degree in marketing. She spent a lot of time also in the NASCAR industry and worked with a lot of top stars focusing on getting corporate sponsorships for them. What she found in that work was that often people in organizations, they were failing not because of the potential that they had, but because they weren't doing a good job focusing on what matters most to them. And she has come to believe, and she's going to share with us how brand in her mind drives everything. She's the leading individual and corporate brand consultant. She focuses on leadership marketing and is an image coach. Her company helps individuals communicate their personal and professional brand to others. She also works with corporations on doing that, focusing on their corporate brand. She believes, and Moda works to help individuals and companies share who they are and what they do in a way that allows others to see their unique individual and corporate value. And that's why we invited her to be part of Ethical Leadership Week, is to help us understand on an individual level, that there's importance in knowing who we are and what we value individually, and making decisions that are consistent with those values and what's important to us. And by doing that, that's kind of the first step in creating a personal brand that is authentic. And this is how it ties to our theme this week, and that is truthful and that has integrity. So please join me, and the only way we can on Zoom, right, to welcome Mila Grigg, and we can wave our hands as we applaud Mila joining us.
Well, hey everybody, can you hear me? I can see you, Leanne. We're good? Awesome. Thanks for having me. I'm so humbled to be here. Love MTSU. I just had a wonderful conversation with Tom and Martha Boyd, just incredible people, and so glad to have met you both. I am so happy to be here to talk about brand. Although you might be happy about this, I'm not happy that we only have a few minutes. So breathe a sigh of relief, because this is typically 8 hours or more, but we're going to try to get in as much as we can in terms of brand and how it relates to being truthful and ethical, and what integrity has to do with that. So 5 seconds on my background in terms of helping executives. I've had the company 20 years. And so in some shape or form, I've been talking with executives at all levels on building their brand. And really all that means is how people perceive you, right? Your brand is how people perceive you, and you don't own it. I think if you remember nothing else, remember you don't own your brand, other people do. So when you get off the call today, if you describe this as, oh, Mila was great, she did a wonderful job, I would love that, but you may not. And if you say, I didn't really like it, I didn't glean anything, I would feel horrible, but that's my brand. So that you own it, I don't own it. The best that I can do is do my best to drop a nugget or two that you can take with you, and that hopefully changes the trajectory of where you're going, and or changes your perspective and gives you a bit of a focus shift. So really quickly, when it comes to personal branding, everybody always comes to us to talk about, how do I become the brand leader? How do I get a promotion? I'm not being seen at work. I'm really intelligent, but I'm not necessarily being rewarded for that intelligence. I work hard, but my boss doesn't see me. Or, hey, I want to make a lateral move and I can't. I haven't shared my story. I haven't shared it in person. I haven't shared it on social media. I don't use LinkedIn. Nobody really knows where I am. And on COVID, I was a big shot in my own company, but now my company is folded and nobody outside of it really knows who I am. So branding encompasses so much. And the most important part to being a brand leader, regardless of company or industry, really is the idea that the best brands have the highest level of integrity. So when I talk about branding, it's so much more than just sharing your story or getting on LinkedIn and having 80 billion followers, or it's so much more than being intelligent or even the best at what you do. Branding is knowing a few fundamental things, and for me and for every client that I've had the opportunity to work with, branding is truly about having a foundation and knowing who you are. So there's so much to unpack there, but you're created for a purpose. And I think most executives that I talk to don't always believe that, know it, and or exude that. You're created for such an incredible purpose. And sometimes we make mistakes when it comes to where we're going, or we make bad choices, or we lie. I don't think there's a human on this earth who hasn't lied at least once, right? Or maybe even 10 or 20 or 100 times. So as I go through this quick presentation, I don't care what mistakes you've made, where you've been, what you've done, what you've been involved in. Every day is a fresh start to have a brand and to have a reputation that says, this is who I am, I'm created for a purpose, I have integrity, and I'm going to make every single decision through the right brand filter, right? So the idea when you get into the world of work, right, is everybody wants to stand out of this crowd. So here's this crowd and people are like, how do I stand out? And how am I seen? And how will I be seen? And I have this gifting. All of those things are incredibly important. But I have met some of the smartest people in the world who have made mistakes, and it sets them back quite a bit. So Warren Buffett, if you don't believe me, let's believe Warren Buffett, 20 years to build a reputation, 5 minutes to ruin it. If you think about that, you'll do things differently. And for some of you may have seen this quote, heard this quote, been taught it. I know you've gone through Dale Carnegie, some of you, and because of that, this is a quote that's used often. And here's the deal with that. If you have a strong brand and people know who you are, and you have a filter, which we're going to get into because this is going to be your homework if you so choose it to be, and I really do hope that you choose to do it and follow through with it. We'll pick some brand words. But if you take every decision that you want to make and go through a filter, even when you make a mistake, which you will, and you already have, I've made 1,000 mistakes. I've built my company on failure after failure, mistake after mistake. So when you do make that mistake, when you have a strong brand foundation, people know who you are. They know the words that they would use to describe you, those brand values, those adjectives that they would use. So if somebody said, hey, I want you to describe Mila Grigg in 5 sentences or 5 words or less, I would want people to say integrity. I don't take it, I take it very seriously. So when we pick those words, we'll talk about why you need to pick those words. But when you make a mistake and you have a strong brand, and people know that brand and people use the same words to describe you, when you fall onto that foundation, it's going to bounce you back up again, right? But if you don't have a brand and you fall, you make a mistake, you do something wrong intentionally or unintentionally, whatever it might be, and people don't know who you are, there isn't a foundation and you just fall. And it takes much longer to get back to a place where you're basically even again, right? So building a brand helps you to not only share the story and do all the things and build a personal marketing plan, but it truly helps people to have a very quick view of who you are. And in a world that's moving so incredibly fast, the biggest thing that you can take a brand hit with is integrity. So, there are executives that I've worked with who will say, this is what I've done, or I've lied, or I've worked with CFOs and financial officers who have said, I haven't necessarily done the right things and reported the right numbers. And because of my past and my history and my own story, people feel really comfortable in telling me that. And I'm not judgmental, but I will say integrity is one of the things that can make you get the biggest hit. A lie can get you the biggest hit, and it's so incredibly hard to come back from that. And we all think that brand, you can share this story on social where the world is fake and no one's really sharing the right story. We all think that branding is this storytelling process. Most of us think that, but brand is an everyday thing. So we will go to Michael Eisner, and he said, a brand is a living entity enriched or undermined cumulatively, like over time. So a brand is not one great moment or one horrible moment or 50 great moments and 100 horrible ones. It's just over time, your brand is either built or destroyed or then built and cracked, right? 1,000 small gestures. So what people think about you is a product of 1,000 small gestures. And Michael Eisner, chairman and now is not, but ex-chairman and chief executive officer of the Walt Disney Company. So if you don't believe me, right, believe him. And why do I say that? Because he has a stronger brand than I do. I'm not as well known as him. I haven't written New York Times bestseller. I haven't run a Fortune 100 company, right? So while I'm doing this, I'm co-branding to get your buy-in, right? Because I co-brand with brands that have done things the right way, even if they've made mistakes. So you have to realize right now you've got a brand, right? Reputation happens to you, brand is built, so you have to be intentional about building it. And the biggest thing that you can do to build brand is to understand what your values are. And when we talk about branding, oh my gosh, it's so many things. So if an executive says, gosh, I need people to know who I am, I have value, I have intelligence, I work harder than everybody else, but nobody knows it. I haven't done a great job communicating it. These are all of the pieces of a brand. It's your why and your purpose. And I saw, on a sheet that you'll get following up, I know there was a mention of Simon Sinek, big fan of knowing your why. Those things are so important. Storytelling, emotional intelligence is a part of brand communication. But really the most important thing about a brand are your principles and your values. You have to know what your values are starting now. Now, will they change a smidge over time? Absolutely. They'll change ever so slightly. You'll learn new things. You'll continue to grow into the person that you were created to be toward that purpose that you have in life. We all created for a purpose, and as you grow toward that purpose, those values might change. And in your follow-up work, you will see a list of adjectives and brand values. Now, the goal with you or any executive I work with would be to get those adjectives down to 5. Now, mine start with that faith is my foundational value, right? So that's one of mine. And then I have integrity on top of that. I have empathy is a huge part of my brand because I happen to be extraordinarily empathetic. I've been through a lot. And I think when you've been through some trials, you're very empathetic towards others. And that's how I want people to describe me, whether I'm with my kids on a soccer field, giving a keynote like today with all of you, or a new person that I've just met. It doesn't matter how long someone has known me. I want those same values to be things that people think about when they meet me. This is the key to success in life when it comes to business. Most executives who haven't been successful have a very different view of themselves that others actually have of themselves. So if you look at this picture in front of you, this is a lot of the executives I work with. They don't have values as a base for what they do and as a filter for all that they choose to do. So what I want you to do is ask yourself this question. How would you like people to perceive and describe you when they see you? I'd say, so Harvard Med and Mass Gen did a study, and they said it takes about 1/4 of a second when someone sees you to either establish trust or not. It's an incredible statistic. It's completely unfair. They're not talking about what you look like, but they're talking about your image, right? Overall, when they hear you, and hear you means tone of voice, the words that you're choosing, and when they read something that you've written. So that can be anything on social media, emails, and I want you to think about this too. So if you want integrity and truth, honesty to be a part of your brand, I want you to take your phone or think about, don't take your phone, actually keep it on your desk, I lied. Don't take your phone. I want you to think about the text messages on your phone currently. If they were to get hacked, and they were to get put all over social media, and they said they're crediting them to you, what would the values people, after they've read your text, right? Eventually they're going to get hacked, so you've got to think about this. What are the values that people would use to describe you? Would they be the same before they saw your text as they would after, right? Or if somebody hacked into your email, would the values that people use to describe you be the same? You know, a lot of people describe integrity as what you do when nobody's looking. You know, I know this, sometimes I talk about integrity and I talk about even how it works in the world of finance. And I will say this, some people have made the greatest mistakes in those things. You can always come back, right? So if you're like, I can't because of all the things I've done, and I harp on this simply because this is what I hear from so many people. I can't have integrity as a brand value or truth or honesty because of X, Y, and Z in my past. Nobody cares. Today's a new day, move forward, right? You can always choose a different path or a different perspective. You've got to ask yourself, how do you want people to perceive and describe you when they hear you, see you, or read something that you've written? And you want, again, those values to be the exact same. So in your homework follow-up, think about this ugly filter, right? This is just a picture of an air filter that you use in your house, but it's a great picture of a filter. Now imagine on this air filter, if I took a Sharpie or whatever it might be, spray paint can, and I spray painted your values on it. So whether that's excellence, integrity, honesty, empathy, compassion, intelligent, whatever you want people to associate with you, right? And so then you imagine holding this filter in front of you with the words on it. Every single decision that you make, every single decision, whether you go to hang out with a friend somewhere, whether you go to class on time, whether you say this word or that word, every word choice that you have, where you spend your money, where you invest your money, where you save your money, how you communicate with people, how you greet people, how you don't greet people, all of those things. Think about having that filter in front of you, right? And you've got these words on this filter. So as the words come out of your mouth or the actions that you have, the body language that you have, if it goes through the filter, right, of excellence, through the filter of integrity, through the filter of honesty, if you've got that in front of you, and most very high level execs that we've worked with, we've actually done this. We've actually taken a Sharpie and it looks ugly and we put it on that air filter and it allows them to have that in front of them. So when they're faced with moments where they can make the wrong decision, but it looks easy at the time, they don't. For instance, there's a great video. I posted it today on LinkedIn. And so if you have a LinkedIn, link in, or you can see the feed. It's a post of two soccer players. One soccer player is going after the ball and he kind of slides forward on his knees. And the one behind him didn't hit him at all, but looked like he might have. And the ref called it and said, the guy gets a penalty kick because he looked like he hit him. Both the guy on the floor and both the guy that had the penalty against him said, he didn't hit me. He didn't hit me. And the ref just went with his call. And instead of, trying to take the penalty kick and getting it, which is a high probability, the guy just lightly tapped the ball to the left of the goal. Two soccer players on different teams, gave each other the bump. And those huge moments where people can see those choices might be a bit easier, right? So if he could have taken the kick, he could have gotten the goal. What would that have done for his reputation, for his integrity? And we might all say, man, I would have done the same thing. If I didn't hit him, I would have done the same thing. Ref made a bad call, would have kicked it to the side, been the hero of the day, right? But it's what we do when nobody is looking. So there are so many decisions that you've had, but so many more that are coming up the pike that you're going to have, where you have the ability, if you have a filter in front of you that says truthful, that says integrity, that says honesty, your filter gives you this insane freedom to pause. And I think a lot of us don't always pause when making decisions. I know executives don't at all levels, business people in general. Sometimes you just move so fast, you're making the wrong decision, but the right decisions are made if you remember who you are on any given day at every given moment. And most of us, we know what to do, right? We have this idea, like, I want to be an honest person. I want to do well. I want to help with whatever it is that your purpose is. I want to make change in whatever segment of the world that yours is. But most people don't do what they know, right? So when we're faced with things that are tough, or we think, oh my gosh, if I don't do this, someone won't like me. If I don't do this, I won't get the promotion. If I don't do this or say this or stand up for the right thing, well, gosh, I'll get fired. I won't even get the lateral move for the same amount of money. These are the things that I'm hearing all the time. So as the world gets harder and as social media gets more and more, the decisions that you make are going to be more visible, right? You're always on stage. So right now you have the most amazing opportunity in your lives. I wish I could go back and be young again and do a lot of things over again. And I want to be the person that I needed, which was someone telling me, look, you can always make the right decisions if you have that filter in front of you. You'll make the right decisions for who you are and for who you were created to be. So when we look at things like that, I want to just really quickly, let me look at time. We have 15 minutes left. Leanne, I can see you. Do you want to do question and answer really quick? I have a few more things to share, but I don't want to miss question and answer.
We haven't had any questions in chat yet. So if you want to keep going, and students, if you have some questions, you can type them in chat. And we will
love that, guys. I mean, I'll answer as many questions as there are. So please feel free. Anything about branding in general, even if it's something that I haven't covered, don't hesitate. And it just takes one to ask, and then everyone else starts. But so what I want you to do in your follow-up homework, more than really anything else, is to take the time to actually look at those words. When you look at the idea that you already have a brand, there are mistakes that you've made. So we want you to go back and look at those mistakes, but not in a way where you feel bad about it, but in a way where you go, look, this might be what people currently perceive. This is really who I am and who I've grown to be. And here are the steps I'm going to take in order to have that consistent brand and have that consistent reputation where everybody is saying the same things. And that's where that filter comes into place. I think we've got a question. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Samantha, can you speak about what got you interested in branding? Oh, I got to tell you, that was a bit of a faith journey. So I started off working in NASCAR, and they were at the time, I'm from San Diego, so NASCAR was not something that I grew up around, and then had the opportunity to work in NASCAR and to be on a fly on the wall in meetings I probably shouldn't have been in. I mean, truly just very, very lucky and blessed. But they were a branding machine. And so it was on a shoot one day with the driver, and there was somebody there styling them and telling them what to say. And it went against all the things that I knew about the driver and who this driver was. And I thought, man, why are you trying to change this person? This is not who they are. That is definitely not what they would say. And you're not making them look like themselves. And so just on a whim, an idea popped to my head and I said, I think I can do this. I think I can start my own company. I knew what brand was because of NASCAR before the whole world started to talk about brand. And then just decided to jump out on it. And really, I love brand, Samantha, because I do believe wholeheartedly with everything in my being that everybody has a purpose, and so many people don't meet it. And I've met a lot of very successful, very wealthy, not just rich, wealthy executives who haven't necessarily reached their purpose. So branding allows you to be seen and to be heard, and for people to see the value that's in you, that's already in you, that you have to offer. And I hate when people get missed for opportunities that they deserve. So it keeps me going, and it's the very why of why I do what I do. I hope that helps just a little bit. All right, so I'm gonna say this wrong. Is it, and tell me if I'm wrong. So Gurinder Singh, I may be wrong. My first real name is Ljubica. It's always mispronounced. I go by Mila. So if I've said it wrong, just know I feel your pain and you can hit me later. How can you brand yourself on YouTube? Great question. Also be yourself and keep your values on your mind. Sometimes it's hard to be yourself on camera. Yeah, so I 100% understand that. How do you brand yourself on YouTube? One, I would say the biggest thing is who cares about likes and followers? That'll come if you're providing content and producing content that is truly honest to who you are. I put a post just this morning. Weirdly enough, it's from a guy named Gary Vee, but he was talking to a little boy who was talking about YouTube, and he said the same thing, like, one, don't care about who follows you or who likes you. I would say follow Gary Vee. There are some things he says I totally disagree with, but he's very big on helping you to kind of grow on YouTube. So there's that piece of advice. And then how do you keep yourself and keep your values in mind? That brand filter is so important. So if you're producing content that is true to who you are, that is creating or getting you closer to your purpose and what you want to share, the biggest reason people change their values or disregard them or forget about them or go in a different direction is because they care so much about what other people say. So when you put yourself out on any social, especially YouTube, second largest search engine in the world, right? So and like 88% of all content they say by 2022, most studies from universities will say is all going to be video. Most people, if they don't know who they are, and if they don't have their value set, strong value set, you change direction incredibly easily because you hear the other people in the world, the naysayers, the people who say, oh, I don't like what you have to say, and then it shifts. So keep it in mind that your value system, every time you post, every time you think of an idea, and then every time you read a comment, whether it be positive or negative, remember who you are and don't let other people sway the direction that you're going in, and be very careful of people who give you advice. Right? I always say, if somebody's going to give you advice, ensure that they've had experience. It's not just an opinion, but know your value set and don't let other people sway you. And don't do YouTube unless you're strong in your core and you know who you are. Hopefully that helps a little bit. I'm sorry I'm going so fast. I know I don't want to run out of time. So I don't normally talk at warp speed, but hopefully you guys can understand me, and I'm not going too fast. All right, wow, that's so cool, inspiring. Thank you for sharing. Do I have any tips or advice for someone about to start a brand ambassador internship? Wow, so yes, I do. So brand ambassador internship, geez, know what brand is. So read all the books, do all the things. Most people will say, hey, I know Gary Vaynerchuk, or hey, I know Neil Patel, or hey, I know, here are the consultants that I know. And then I always say, hey, did you read the book? And they say no, and now you're caught. You know them, but you don't really know them. So read as many books as you can. Brand ambassador book you should read is by a woman named Denise, middle name Leigh, L-E-E, last name Yohn, Y-O-H-N. She's wrote a book called Fusion and many others, but as a brand ambassador, Denise Leon, and the book Fusion talks about brand and culture and how those two things need to not only work together, but quite literally fuse together. And she has examples from companies all over the world. Obviously the ones from Southwest. She talks about the Johnson & Johnson scandal, how they came out of that and used brand to do that. She talks about Navy SEALs and what brand means to them and how culture is confused. So Denise Leon is one of the books I would recommend to you first for reading. And if you have any other questions, don't hesitate, link in with me and shoot me messages on there as well. All right, Audrey, on your website, you have webinars tab that appears geared toward executives. Do you offer something like this for individuals as well? Yeah, absolutely. So this is one of the things that, it's so hard. And, I have 6 kids. So as a mom of 6 in a company, it's so hard to manage time, and there's no such thing as balancing work life and home life and family life and husband life and all the things, and mostly soccer life. I'm on the soccer field constantly. So that's one of those things that we're working toward, but I would say LinkedIn, and the second we start doing them, you'll see it. I think that's the goal next year after the book comes out in October. So sign up, they'll be free. I'm not going to charge for any of those moving forward, webinars for those in college and like new grads. I'm just passionate about it. And I have some kids that are, 22 to 30, my older ones. And so your generation, I'm just passionate about helping as much as I can. So just link in and then we'll start offering those. And if you've got questions, again, don't hesitate, let me know. I said your name right. Yes. Okay. That's the best part of my month right there. Yes. All right, cool. All right, so I think I answered all of those.
Mila, there was one from Brandon Green that asked, do you have recommendations on how to brand yourself on your resume?
Oh, okay. So yeah, I mean, there's so much to unpack with the resume. That could be like another 8 hours, right? So, I always send everybody to a resume coach. It's one of those things where the biggest, I'll go from this perspective, actually. I'm on the other side of companies. So sometimes the company will actually hire me, or while I'm doing other random marketing things, they'll say, hey, you talk a lot about culture. I need you to look through like 100 resumes and tell us who you would hire based upon the image of the resume. The basics, 99% of the time, it's the basics that are missed. And so I will throw out any resume with misspellings. I'll throw out anyone that looks like it has an old template. I'll throw out any resumes that, the structure just doesn't make sense. So really, really focus on structure. One of the things a young man said to me once, he's like, I'm really innovative. Here are all the tech things I'm doing. I'd really like to work for Nissan. And I said, great. Let me take a look at your resume. And it looked like it had been written on a typewriter in 1970. So you really have to focus on the image of the resume, short, sweet, to the point, value offer. But even more than that, I'll say this. Resumes are so important, Brandon, but your LinkedIn is 1,000 billion quadrillion, not even a word. I'm trying to emphasize how much more important it is. So a lot of people will say, oh my gosh, I'm not really on LinkedIn. I don't see the value I want. I don't have time to tell you why. I just have time to tell you that is more important. So I'm in HR and Fortunes, I'm in HR and healthcare, hospitals, health systems, associations. Everyone's going to look at your LinkedIn. Your resume might be good, so make sure it looks up to date and it's spelled right and all the things, but your LinkedIn needs to look like it's off the charts. It is the most organic growth platform. So before resume focus, I put all my focus intentionally, all of it on LinkedIn. I hope that helps a little bit, but that's what you should be doing, and read all the things about what you can do on LinkedIn to make it what somebody looks at. So if you have a great resume and a bad LinkedIn, it doesn't matter anyway. Hopefully that helps. Take a great picture, all the things. So I don't know, did I miss any others, Leanne? Am I on there? Do we have any other questions?
You're good.
Okay.
Got them all.
I don't know how much time we've got left. Is there anything?
What is 5 minutes more? What is that? Is that enough?
Yeah, no, okay. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. No, it's not. I'll be honest, it's not, but we're going to do it. We're going to get as much in as we can, but keep asking questions. I love these guys. So if you have even questions about, LinkedIn and all the things, but, when we talk about integrity, I think the biggest thing that I focus on with everybody that I work with is most companies say they have integrity. And most individuals that I work with use that word intentionally. Like, I have integrity and I'm always honest in my communication. And I'm like, yeah, I know, I get it. But most don't, right? It's not something that they use for every single decision. So the people who are successful in life in terms of building a legacy for themselves, for their families, for their children, if they so choose to have them, for the people that they work with, consistency creates a strong brand. So for those clients that I've had and friends who go, man, there are a few things that I've done and, oh, it just doesn't matter. In a world with social media and in a world with video cameras everywhere, in a world where, people can write about something that you've done so fast, have you heard that saying, a lie can travel around the world faster than the truth can get its boots on, right? So making the right decision is always the best decision. And I've made some of the right decisions even when they've been the hardest. And I'll tell you that faith in making the right decision works out. It might feel terrible in the moment, but having that choosing your words on your homework, which is where I really want you to focus, and there's a list of adjectives, is so important. So I choose integrity, not because I feel like it's a cool thing, or, you know, every bank and accounting firm, law firm, and, you know, car lot uses integrity as a firm. I use it because I know what it's like when someone close to you, so someone close to me had a breach of integrity, total crack of integrity, failed big time, like fell from the top of his career to the bottom of his career. And it was all based upon poor decisions, zero integrity, and a lot of pride. And so I understand what happens when you have an integrity breach, and the wave, the torrential wave or the hurricane that follows for those poor decisions and the consequences they have for people around them. So that story to tell you, every word that you choose, you have to have a reason, not just like, oh, I have excellence, or I'm intelligent, or like you might be, but I want you to have a reason for those, which will also help you to market yourself. Eventually, if we had another 12 hours, I would say, hey, look, we're going to talk about how you share your story on LinkedIn, and every one of your words needs to have 5 stories. Because you can't just walk into someone's office and say, you should hire me, I have integrity, and your culture has integrity too, and I think we're matched. I mean, that sounds ridiculous, right? So you've got to share your words that you choose through specific stories and storytelling online, on LinkedIn, on video. All of those pieces kind of come together. But step 1 in building this unstoppable brand is to choose those words with intention versus just what's cool and what's popular. Jacob, should I create a new LinkedIn when trying to change my field of work? No, not at all. Keep the same one, document it, post about what's going on, tell people about the transition through posts and articles. I would absolutely not keep it one. And even if you do change industries or even direction, a lot of people ask this question, it's a great question. Should I change it because I don't know what people will think, or they'll think something that isn't true? Well, then you control your narrative, you control your story on LinkedIn, tell them why through a post, co-brand as you can. So if someone else did something before you, like I'll co-brand with Warren Buffett because he's smarter than me, and why wouldn't I? Co-brand with other people, co-brand with Harvard Business Review, co-brand with whatever you can, right? If there's a great article in Fortune or Forbes, co-brand with that and other leaders whose path you may be similar to, so that people can very quickly go, I get it. Okay, all right, I get it. I see what you're doing. You're kind of like Richard Branson. You kind of are making a choice like whatever leader. And it gives them the ability to get to know that faster. But no, definitely don't change your LinkedIn. Keep it and build on your experience, but don't just let it sit there. LinkedIn should be living and breathing. You should be posting all of the time and or sharing. Hopefully that helps, Jacob. That's a great question.
And Mila, the other professor that's co-hosting the keynote said you could have as much time as you needed. So as far as his class is concerned. So if you would like 10 more minutes or 50, I don't know, keep us to the end of class if you want.
Well, completely your call. I mean, I don't want to take up anyone else's time. I really would love to dial down on questions if we have time and people want to ask them.
So why don't we take more questions from folks? And I will hush and see if some people have other questions.
Yes. Okay. You're back, Grinder. Yes. Okay. Do you share any branding content on your social? Absolutely. So it's really interesting. I used to do this all the time. Over the last month and a half, I've taken a minute to pause, which is really kind of a scary thing for someone in branding. LinkedIn is a place where I share a lot of branding content, do a lot of videos, and used to do a ton. Shifting the business model a little bit, which has caused me to go, I'm going to pause. I'm going to take an intentional pause. And we're ramping up again, have shot probably 30 videos in the last few months. So we'll be releasing those, ton of content. But really, if you've got questions, I love it when someone on LinkedIn, I think we've got like 25,000 followers. So again, a ton of questions, and I love to take those and actually answer those. So if you've got any, link in and ask, and we can answer those. But yeah, absolutely. Hope that helped. Michael, hi, Michael. How do you feel about Indeed? And I imagine just in order to put your resume up and get a job is, hopefully I can't see your face, so hopefully that's it. You can maybe just give me a yes. Indeed is a job posting, it's great. It depends on where you're going. So I'm working with a health system right now, and they're trying to find nurses, right? And then they're trying to find executives and a few directors. And so being very strategic on where they're placing their needs. you have to be strategic, like ZipRecruiter, all of them do their job. But I think even with that, the most important piece is going to be your LinkedIn, because wherever you put your resume up, people are going to be looking at your LinkedIn first. I can't tell you how many times I've been on the other side of something, seen a resume I like, and then seen a LinkedIn that isn't active, you know, and everyone's sitting there like, man, I really want to call this person, but they don't have an active LinkedIn, which makes people think you either don't know better, which is tough, or you just don't know, which I don't know, which is worse. So either way, hopefully that helped a little bit, Michael. I think it's great. I just think anyone that you choose, Monster, Indeed, all the things, anyone, they're fine. I don't feel like any one is better than the other, except for when you're going for a specific industry, and then you can judge on that. So if you're looking to work in the automotive industry, there's probably a better platform. If you're in healthcare, there's certainly a better platform. So find that and do a little research on that and go from there. But again, LinkedIn matters more than anything else. Let's see. Can you talk about the importance of asking for feedback? Can you talk about the importance of asking for feedback from people who know you to help you discover, define your brand? Yeah, it's so important. So sometimes I'll work with an executive and they'll tell me what they think people think. And then I've done already what I call a 360, and there's one you can do online, and it's a program, but there's also the 360 in person. So I'll say, hey, give me people that you know, that you've just met, some that you've known forever, give me husband, wife, family, whatever it might be, and then business executive colleagues. And I'm asking them, give me words, tell me about this person, share some stories. And then my job is to go back to the executive and go, here's what you think people think, and then here's what they really think. And that's a hard day, right? And then I'm over here going, but we can change that, because I know who you really are. You just haven't shared the correct way, and you haven't gone back and smoothed over and explained a hit that you've taken. So it's important. You have to ask for feedback, but I often will tell people, be careful who you ask feedback from, right? You want to ask feedback from people who have your best interests in mind, or have their values aligned with yours. I think a lot of people get off track because there isn't a value alignment between the person you're asking from. So if you can find that out, great. And if not, really have your filter on when you're listening to the feedback. I have feedback from, there's a CEO, ex-CEO, he's older now, of a Fortune 5, and he likes to tell me what I'm doing wrong all the time, pretty much every other week. I'll get an email like, hey, I didn't like that, or I don't even like that social media post. So I'm constantly getting feedback that I want and sometimes don't want. So there's always a good thing to have mentors in your life and people who can, you can throw things by, but it's so important. You can't live on an island. And as we go to work environments that are, gosh, they're just not at work, so it's not as easy to bond, you really have to be more intentional about having people in your life who you're asking for feedback from. It's extraordinarily important, because sometimes we get so caught up in ourselves, whether it's so caught up in good and we become prideful, or caught up on the things that we're doing wrong. We have to have people who bring us back to a level base. So could not push the point more that you need to have people in your life who you can ask feedback from. And again, birds of a feather flock together. Last thing I'll say about that. So consider the source, right? I surround myself with people who are smarter for a reason, who have done more, who have more experience, and then whose value set aligns with mine. So I know that they are coming from a place of caring and wisdom versus opinion and potential untruth. So again, be careful with that, but it's so important. Alexis, I love it. My daughter's Alexandra, so I love your name. As someone who is very young, 18, and trying to get into the professional workforce, how should I market myself to enhance my strengths and come off as a mature professional? Ah, so awesome. So what a great question. I love that you're asking this at 18. I wish someone had told me the things that I'm saying today, and even more at that age. But I will say, thank God there was, we didn't have Snapchat and Facebook and Instagram when I was younger. Oh boy, that'd be a lot of brain hits I'd have to go back and take care of. So you guys have a lot of things that, you know, you've got to worry about. So as you think about how should you market yourself, a couple of things. I think you're in that discovery stage where you're going to be reading new things, seeing new things, hearing new things. And keeping an inventory of the things that work with you, that track with you, that align with you, and writing those down. So if you're reading a book, or you see a quote, or you find, so I have a lot of mentors I've never met, right? Like Warren Buffett mentors me, never met the man, boy, would I love to, but he mentors me in certain ways. And so I wouldn't focus so much on marketing yourself just yet. I would have a LinkedIn. now and start building it, I would more focus on establishing your values, being consistent, learning as much as you possibly can, and then reading from the people who you want to be like. So I have books in front of me right now. It's a huge bookshelf, and so you learn in school and you learn certain things, and then there are things that you aren't going to learn. So I have a book in front of me that I've read 100 times by Jack Welch, another one by Ray Dalio. A lot of things, Ray Dalio's biggest hedge fund ever. I've had books in front of me. John Maxwell is somebody I follow, and then pastor after pastor on my bookshelf. So constantly reading and growing in who you are, and then really for you and for anybody else, marketing yourself to enhance your strengths. You've got to know what those strengths are, right? You have to know what the value is that you have to offer past just the job that you're doing. So a lot of people are like, I'm really good at my job. I'm really good at my job. And I'm like, doing your job isn't good enough anymore in the world today. So you've like, what value do you add, right? So if you're asking me, hey, Mila, what value do you add, right? So in an environment, the gifting that I have is being able to pretty quickly see what people are thinking or feeling in an environment, high level of emotional intelligence, saying that you're calling it. So that's the value I've got. I can tell you how to brand, but I'm also going to help bring your team together. And I can kind of tell why you don't have confidence and tell why you're scared, and kind of have a feeling why you haven't spoken up yet. And then reaching into these people, finding their gifts and helping to cultivate those gifts on top of giving marketing or social or brand advice. So, and then telling people that, right? So some people are like, wow, you're pretty prideful in that. It's the only gift I've got. Like my kids are going to tell you, I've got one gift, that's it. Like everything else, like that's the one thing I have. So I develop it. Find your strength, find your value, grow those, and then be consistent in your brand and have a LinkedIn. I wouldn't market myself as much as I would share things that work. So I would share things from mentors. I would share things from Forbes. I would share quotes that resonated with me. And that's how I would start to build that marketing platform. Follow all the people on there that you, if you go to like what people follow, it's going to tell you a lot about them. So I'd build that platform while you're finding your value and strengths, and I'd go from there. Hopefully that helps. So much to unpack there. I'm trying to go at warp speed here.
Mila?
Yes.
There's 2 questions that have been posted. So let's have you do those 2, and then we'll do a wrap up. And then if you want to stick on, we'll let some folks ask you questions just like we would if we were person to person, where they come up and kind of talking to you. Does that sound
awesome?
Like a plan? Okay.
Yeah, sounds great. Okay, so we've got Savannah. I have a social media account for my artwork, congrats, and have struggled with creating a brand image. How do you feel about creating a brand image or persona that is separate from your personal image, i.e. stage name, alias? I think you should bring those 2 together. 100%. I don't know how to answer this quickly other than you're a whole package. Like you're a cohesive unit, like your gifts and your art. You can do that, and you can also be an analyst at an accounting firm. Like it doesn't matter. You're a whole package, and the value is seen as a whole package. So not knowing about your art or like the why behind you asked that question, and I could be wrong if I found the why out, I would venture to say keep those 2 as one. This is going on right now in the financial world. So real-time example, the world of the realty world used to be, hey, you can't have a separate personal social media account. You only have to have a corporate one. We have to approve everything that you do, and you can't post things. And then there are some realtors who just said, no, I'm breaking the mold. I'm getting out there. Who I am at work and who I am at home, those 2 things are one. I need a brand to be seen. Now they're highly successful realty companies all over the world, from Douglas Elliman to Colliers International, whatever it is, are allowing their employees to not only have a personal brand, but also represent the corporate brand, and they're bringing them together, which they have found creates a stronger, obviously, connection to the people that are representing them. So the connection isn't just your work. People have to be connected to you, your purpose, and your why. So those 2 things should be one. I hope that helps. Not sure if it does. If it doesn't, link in and I can answer that a little more specifically. But overarchingly, I would say they need to be one and fused. Okay, last question from Amanda. What advice would you give to an older student entering the professional workforce for the first time as far as branding goes to help them stand out from the younger crowd? Do you see any hurdles for older students to overcome as far as branding goes? Nope, I think you have more experience. So kudos to you. Experience wins every single time. In terms of branding, I would go ahead and just talk about the experiences that you've had, good, bad, and ugly. Sometimes failure can be the greatest win over moment, especially if you've learned something from it. I would go ahead and start, like, especially on your LinkedIn, as we're talking about professional, I would go ahead and start posting books you're reading, things you're doing, things you've learned, all of those pieces so that your brand can start to win. Most younger graduates aren't focused on those things. So if you are, it just shows a greater amount of experience and knowledge. And I will say most companies, you know, look at Tractor Supply. I never in a million years, and I love Tractor Supply. I love all the CEOs that have been there for the past 5, 6, 7 years, from Joe Scarlett to Hal Lawton today. Hal Lawton is quite literally on LinkedIn constantly, and he's applauding successes of store managers and liking things that assistant store managers have put on and liking things that other executives have done and initiatives that they have. I mean, he's active and he's available and he's there and he's seeing things. And people back in the day would be like, I'm just an assistant store manager. Why should I be in LinkedIn? And I'm like, no, you're going to miss out. And now look, right? You've got the CEO who's kind of leading the way. I mean, he came from Macy's, different perspective on social, and now look at, he's very active. So I would say create a profile that shares your experience and shares the things that you've seen and gone through and done. Don't let anybody guess about who you are ever. Do the videos, show the experience, co-brand, and then you're going to win.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think someone's unmuted, and then Leanne, you are muted.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you very much, Mila. I'm going to do you keep mentioning the homework, so I'm going to share that with them.
Good.
Let me get back to, okay. Okay, guys. So what we're going to do here is we're going to wrap up so folks who want to move on can, and then there's some questions there. So please hang on, and Mila will keep answering your questions. But I did want to again say thank you for your participation in the Tom and Martha Boyd Ethical Leadership Week. We have, so scoot over here, have done this week in conjunction with the Financial Literacy Week. Because they were happening at the same time, it just made sense for us to work together. So I wanted to also let you know at 6 o'clock today, Brandon Copeland, who is an NFL player, is going to be doing the keynote for Financial Literacy Week. It's also available on Zoom. So if you would like to catch that, you can register, I think, still through Ignite, or reach out to Ann Anderson and she can send that Zoom link to you. They are also going to record it like this one, and both this one and Brandon's will be posted tomorrow at this place here. So if you have some friends that you want to say, hey, go check these things out, go to, you can just search MTSU Financial Literacy Week and it'll pull up a website that will have these things posted. They will also have posted, Mila kept talking about homework for you. There is a scholarship available to folks who have attended something in the Financial Literacy Week and are watching this keynote. And then if you'll complete an application, and on that application it has some action steps that have you to start thinking about your values, what's important to you, your why, and there's a piece of it from Mila's book that is coming out in October that has those words that she talked about. So even if you don't want to apply for the scholarship, but you want to get started on creating your personal brand, that document will be there for you tomorrow for you to click on. In my class, the ethics folks are asked to do this action plan, but for the rest of you, I want you to know that that is there as an optional tool to help you get started thinking about your brand. And then as Mila said, she has a book coming out in October. That book, we'll see if I move the right way, is called Forged by Fire, How to Build an Unstoppable Personal Brand. And the best way to find out when it's out there and how to get it would be to connect to Mila on LinkedIn. Okay, so any questions from anyone before I guess we let folks sign off if they want to, and then we'll start answering questions again. So thank you everyone for your attendance and for being here. And I will put, yes, I will open it up for questions and switch back to Mila. So I'm gonna remove. Oh, you're muted.
Like, what a rookie mistake, right? If you've got questions, definitely let me know. I'll stay on just for a few more minutes. Okay. I've got the PowerPoint on just in case there's a question and a slide that might coincide. So there
were a couple of questions. Let's see. like Dakota McDonald. Dakota, are you still on? You can talk to us at this point, Dakota. Okay.
Oh, she's on. She said
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
I don't see the question though.
It's
Okay.
what is important to keep in mind with regards to branding when starting a business? Was her
Oh.
question.
Okay. All right. So we've got 8 hours, right? No, I'm kidding. So I think the biggest piece of what you should keep in mind, like one, I think most business owners jump off and they're not doing what they should be doing in terms of like, what is their purpose, right? So a lot of people jump into things. Also, I'll step back in order to go forward. I digress. Is this what you want to do with your life, right? Starting a business, what comes to mind when starting a business in general is it's hard. So if you like hard work, run forward with it. Being an entrepreneur, starting a business is excruciatingly hard, but the benefit is so rewarding. But what to keep in mind with branding, the biggest thing where companies go wrong, especially in starting a business, is they create a culture based upon this ethereal idea. You have to have brand values that you make decisions through. So corporate values. A company that we've worked with not long ago, it's a Freeman Web. It's based here in Nashville, and you can go on their site. They'll be redoing their site shortly, and I want you to go look at their brand value statements and give them like 2 weeks to get their site up, but go look at their brand value statements. Everything that this company, it's my favorite company I've ever worked with in 20 years, bar none. Love the people, love the teams. They make decisions on integrity, and they mean it. And I hear a lot of people say integrity, and that I often find like, no, you don't, and your founder sure doesn't, and this is a show right here. It's a dumpster fire. But they have made the most amazing decisions based upon integrity and family and excellence and quality. And they have these amazing brand values that are going to be popping up new on their website. So when you start a business, you've got to know what your values are so that when you are making decisions, you've got corporate value, like Southwest, right? They're winning right now because they have this value set that allows everybody to know who they are and what they are, but it also allows their employees to make decisions based upon those values without having to be micromanaged. You've got to create good culture. So the biggest thing I would think about are what are your values, brand values, what do you want people to know? And then in terms of branding, telling people what those are so that they can hold you accountable. And when it comes to like the visual side, that's a whole other conversation and, another hour of time, and I'm happy to answer at some point. But when it comes to starting a business, that's the first thing I would say. Know your core value set, make sure everyone you hire knows your core value set, make sure your decisions are made through those filters. You typically win. Read the book Fusion, Denise Leon's book Fusion, read it. That's what I would tell you. It's really so important.
And then we had a question from Audrey. Are you seeing that one? It says, what advice would you give an older student who's shifting career direction? Okay, that was actually another student.
Oh, okay.
You did Amanda's about being an older student and distinguishing yourself from the crowd. So Audrey's is similar, but what advice do you give her for shifting career directions about expanding or redirecting your brand?
Shifting career directions about expanding or redirecting brand. I'm not sure if I know exactly what this means.
Audrey, are you still on? Let's see. Yes, Audrey is still here.
I'm still here.
Okay, good.
Yay! Let me know what you got, Audrey.
So I am an older student and I am shifting careers. My brand, or I guess my reputation with my former experience is that, yes, I do have high integrity, but there's also a few other things too that were geared more specifically toward that career. I'm wondering if I need to, or how I would need to shift that going into what will be new for me, which is information systems.
Wow. I'm going to go off on a different place where I was going to go, and I'll say this. For you, for anyone, but as you shift, it's going to be so important for you to control that story. So your experience is so important. So as an older student, like all you're saying is I have more experience than other people, and that's a beautiful thing. So you've got to know the stories in order to share with people who you are and the value that you bring. A lot of people aren't doing that. So behind every value that you have, You've got to have 4 or 5 stories that back up that value. And you've got to have this natural way of weaving those things into a conversation, right? So for instance, full transparency today, I wanted to connect with as many of you as I possibly could today without seeing all of your faces at once. And so I'm watching faces and I'm like, ooh, you're connecting. Oh, okay, he's not, she is, he's not. And I'm trying to capture your heart and your mind at the same time. So I'm trying to share stories about my life that will get you to latch on to what I'm saying, but also make you feel like I have the experience and I'm worth listening to. So for you, you've got experience. I want you to start developing stories. You should get a book. Donald Miller wrote it called Story Brand. It shows you how to create a story based upon true things, and then how to shift and start telling those stories on LinkedIn or whatever it might be. But that's how you're going to share your value. That's how you're going to share your brand. Even if you're going from one industry to another, the value that you have doesn't change. How you execute on that value does change potentially depending upon your job description and industry. So storytelling for you is huge. Know your experiences, talk about your successes through stories, talk about your failures through stories. And then really hit hard on LinkedIn, because I hear a lot of people in ITIS always say, I don't need a LinkedIn, I'm behind the scenes. You need a LinkedIn. Everybody needs one, and everybody needs to share stories that way. So I hope that helped a little bit, Audrey. I don't know if I did or didn't, but that's the first place my mind went.
It did. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for asking. It's a great question.
So there's a question from Jake. Do you see that one? How do you get started on LinkedIn, making connections, etc.? And then the following question, does MTSU offer help in LinkedIn? So I guess if you'll do the first part. Yeah, is there any great advice on like how to develop your LinkedIn or use that as a tool to, you seem to say it's the most important thing we should be doing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for any executive, business owner, CEO, just getting started to retiring, so important. So important. Just yesterday, I had a conversation with a woman who was at a huge, like when I say huge, I wish I could say it, and I'll say it, actually there are thousands of employees of a company called Viacom. She had been there for years and years and years and years, and was a big deal. And then her position, it kind of shifted. If you know anything that's gone on with Viacom, it just shifted. So her department was let go. She was an SVP. Nobody knows her outside. Nobody knows who she is. No one knows her value. No one knows her stories. You know, that's tough. So LinkedIn is incredibly important, and HR career managers are looking at it. Like if you don't have one, it's like you're this not real person. So really it's very important. So to start a LinkedIn profile, I went from 0 followers now after a decade, have like 25,000 or 24,000-ish followers. And I really attribute that to just the amount of posts and then offering value of posting. So I teach a lot on LinkedIn. I share a lot of my best content on there. I give it away because there's enough to go around in this world. So you've got to share value, and then you also have to co-brand. So if you want to start growing followers, which is important after a while, what's more important is that you share value and share your stories and who you are. I want you to consider doing vlogs. If you're a better speaker, so everybody has a gift, right? Like I like to talk. It's easier for me than having to write, so I do a lot of video. But if your medium is writing and you're like, I'm a really good writer, I want you to start doing blogs, right? Which is 1,300 characters or less, around 400 words for posts. I want you to start sharing posts that matter to you. So if I read something, if I read a book, or even if I read a newsworthy story and it's shared by if it's a white paper that someone does or whatever on branding, thank God many universities talk about the very things that I live and breathe. So I get to share those things. I get to co-brand. I get to say, well, this really important person said this, who has a great brand. Now I'm brand associating. But the biggest thing with social media, in particular on LinkedIn, people do. So there's some people who post a lot. There are some people who actually post good content, valuable content, but then they don't engage. Right? So engagement is more important. It's social media, right? So engagement is more important than anything. So as you're linking in with people, don't just send the stereotypical, I'd like to link in with you. Have a note, even if it's a fairly consistent note for everyone, but it's unique, right? Have a note, and when someone links in with you, take the time to go, thanks for linking in. look at their page if you can. After you get to a certain amount of followers, that's going to be harder, but you need to engage. So for instance, transparency. I'm going after a client right now. I think there's someone else up against me for it, out of Canada, really irritating because I'm super competitive. And so right now on LinkedIn, I have befriended every single person in the company. I'm looking at what they like, what they're doing, what they're posting. I'm engaging authentically. I don't lie, but if there's something I like, I'm going to comment. I'm talking to the person who assists this person, who assists this person, all the way to the top, right? Because I'm creating this network of people who know me and who can recommend me. Because I want to win that account because I feel like I can help the most. So I'm engaging as much as I possibly can. I made a turn last year, as most people did on LinkedIn, and I started to do different things and engaging in a different way, sharing different things, but more than that, going to the executives that I want to help or I want them to know about me and what I do, and sending them DMs. The world of DMing, direct messaging is not dead. It's very much alive, even if you're not hearing back. Stats show most people read those things. So start there, share your value, have a really good bio. Don't let it be static and stagnant and dead. Have a good bio. Don't hesitate to include a few personal things on there. Not like personal, but you know what I mean? Give yourself a personality, and then go ahead and feature some of your LinkedIn posts. So go ahead and post 10 posts. Pick one to feature. It's just clicking a star. You can figure this out, and then feature it so that when people come to your LinkedIn page, give them the fastest way to get to know you by featuring 3 or 4 of your posts that kind of share a cohesive story about who you are. Hopefully that helps a little bit, but don't worry about followers right away. Lord knows I say this all the time, so does Gary Vaynerchuk. Don't worry about the likes. Don't worry about followers. Don't worry about likes. Post value. Hopefully that helps a little bit.
So in the part, does MTSU help? Through Ignite, we do have some sessions focused on LinkedIn. I don't know that we take them to where you've just taken us here in this video about really thinking more strategically and engaging and doing those other things. So it's something I guess we could, think about doing a better job at.
Yeah, so fun. Best way to connect. I mean, gosh, as our world becomes more work from home and, you don't have to work in a company, it's become very, very hard for some executives and those underneath looking to grow, like, mid-level managers to grow because they're not in person and they aren't connected on LinkedIn. And, I get this a lot. Well, my company isn't really on LinkedIn. I'm like, well, it doesn't really matter, right? Your company could fold and then what? Like, you can't just be the big cheese in one place. You've got to share the wealth and share the value. So in corporations that are smart, love when executives, employees, managers, whatever, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Janitor to CEO and all the things in the middle are on LinkedIn and sharing a great story, because personal brands that can build and share a corporate brand are going to be the personal brands that win. People want that. And the companies that don't are losing, and it doesn't really matter anyway. So build your LinkedIn.
So I think we have one more, which is, can we pre-order your book?
Oh, that is so nice. Who asked that? Brandon, that is so nice. Not yet. So it'll be out, I'm hoping October, where I'm like knee deep in edits. So hopefully it'll be done. And, I've got to go take a picture for it and all the things that you have to do. And I'll have it's like fake, I'll have fake you all out. I'm not as young as you think. I've got the fake ring light going, all the things. And I think by October it'll be out, and if not, November, but right at around, they said mid to late fall. So link in with me. I hope all of you guys link in, and then of course when it's on there, I'll stick it on there. I appreciate that so much. Thanks for asking.
And Mila, I think we should bring it to a close, but thank you so much for joining us and sharing your experience and your passion with us. And like I said, that you've given, we've got a LinkedIn thing that we need to get working on. So we all do a much better job. So thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks guys for having me. It's been so much fun.